Brawl Reacts. This is where I drop a video once a week on a subject. As you could already see there from the thumbnail, this is about the Cincinnati Brawl. If you haven't heard about it, you know it's about time that maybe you started looking into it. Some violence happened in Cincinnati. Some violence happens all over this country, which I'll highlight in a little bit as well. So let me break it down for those of you who haven't looked into it yet. So somewhere in Cincinnati at the Jazz Fest, we had what looked like a white couple. They're saying maybe elderly, maybe not too, maybe midlife, what have you. A video or recordings capture these 2 to 3 white people being attacked by, they have been labeled thugs, everything else in the media, especially by Fox. I'm using Fox up here, fair use. And we're going to get to that interview in just a minute, and maybe a couple others. I'll do a little bit more in my live. The thing that concerns me here, from where I'm hearing in other news camps, is that you would almost think this is the beginning of a race war. You could see the powder keg starting to be packed in here by the language that they use. And by this video that I'm going to show you right now, by some of the talking heads that they choose to represent and speak out on the situation. Now, to me, part of this is even more upsetting than the actual video. And let me tell you my stance on this, because I'm not a coward. The people I know are not cowards. I think it's cowardly to go around and be a predator to people that are not as physically able on you and maybe pick a fight. That is very cowardly. But on the other hand, they're saying that there's more context to what we've been shown, is that if people are provoked, we can't police how much people could be offended on the other side of that too. And this will give you a little more context to what I'm speaking about. This is an interview with Fox News here, William Kane show, and you're going to see a familiar bootlicker.
Welcome back. We wanted to follow up on a story we first brought you yesterday, that vicious attack on the streets of Cincinnati, Ohio. We are learning today that at least 5 suspects have been charged in the brawl that left a man and a woman brutally beaten. According to the city's police chief, only one person at the scene called 911. Dozens recorded and watched the violence unfold. The chief also saying the viral videos are being taken out of context and don't depict the entire incident. Joining me now is former Tucson, Arizona.
So a couple things before we get to this idiot. The chief was catching some heat because she came on to do a presentation and basically condemning the media like Fox News, by saying, don't jump to any conclusions here. There's more to that video before this investigation is over. We don't want hate leading the investigation, which is a very important thing to say, because already people are up in arms trying to categorize this not as a brawl, not as a fallout, but actually only race motivated. And I believe that's what she was speaking out to. Anyway, let's hear a little bit of what this idiot, this is Officer Tatum. Yeah, I said it like that. And a couple things with people like Tatum and the Hodge twins. They take it upon themselves to be the ones to laugh, condemn anything towards the black community that racist white people want to say. You could say it through Officer Tatum. And here's a little bit of that.
Police officer and host of the Officer Tatum show, Brandon Tatum. Brandon, it's great to have you on the show. You're one of the people I look forward to talking to in a moment like this. Let's start with the police chief. What is she talking about? The videos are taken out of context.
Well, I think that she's just capitulating or trying to save face with the black community, because there is no context that is worth a person getting knocked unconscious and people stomping an individual in the middle.
How do you save face with the black community? By telling everybody, hang on for a second. Don't be enraged. There might be more to the picture than this.
of the street. Everybody with a connected brainstem understand the law is even if the person instigated a altercation, once the person is down and defenseless, you cannot continue to pummel him and kick him over the head. And if you're not involved in this,
everybody with a brainstem. So remind you of the Memphis officers, 5 of them who beat the black man first unconscious, and then he died as a result of that from your very own, your blue line, sir. So what are you talking about? And again, I'm not for stomping people. I'm not for any sort of cruelty or anything that doesn't have to be done. I'm not for the violence like that. But they say all is fair in love and war. If you offend somebody, you can't tell them how much to get offended. Yeah, we could sit back here as spectators and say that seemed unreasonable, shouldn't have done that. But don't say everybody with a brainstem when people from your department do it damn near every day.
Situation, you can't be offended on somebody else's behalf and sucker punch a person and knock them unconscious, potentially killing them. There is no context to that. And I think that if you look at it, if the roles were reversed and this was a bunch of white people stomping out black people and knocking them unconscious, you would never hear the police chief even utter the words that there's more context to it.
I brought that up yesterday, Brandon. What if the racial roles were reversed? It's hard for us to ignore the racial dynamics.
What if the racial
you talked
roles
about it just
were
now.
reversed? What if let's say somebody trying to do his job at a boat liner, and white people came to beat his ass, and we had a gentleman jump overboard from the boat, swim a few yards to go up and help defend that man who was being unfairly attacked by a white mob. This doesn't happen. Are you guys stupid? This happens more often than the news will ever show happens. It just so happens we caught it this time on the reverse. And what are we going to do about it versus try to make this powder keg and trying to incite some sort of a racial war and this poor white victimhood that people like Officer Tatum tries to perpetuate here. So yeah, it does happen. We've seen it. We've seen it over and over. But go ahead and answer this question, Tatum.
When you suggested the police chief is kowtowing or catering to the black audience. So what am I supposed to take away from this? Here you have 2 white victims, a mob of, I don't know how many black individuals beating these people senseless far after, as you point out, there's any legitimate fight. So what am I supposed to do with all of this, Brandon?
Well, you got to look at it for what it really is. A lot of people are afraid to say it, but this is racism, and this is racism visibly from the black community. I grew up.
It's very dangerous to label this a mob when it's a few individuals who they caught. By the way, 3 out of 5 of them, because 2 of them they just decided to charge, and they're going to seek, and they probably will get them as well. So I like the fact that the law is working to capture individuals that exercise, this sort of mentality out on the streets, whether black or white. Police are doing their jobs in that regard. Maybe not so quick on the other, because we know people are able to go home, have lunch, have dinner, sleep on it before they're arrested for doing anything. Tatum is just out of his mind of reality and not thinking before he speaks. So here he goes with some more nonsense.
I've been black my whole life, and I grew up in the black community, and the hatred that black people have for white people is just, it doesn't get spoken about enough. That's why when you see situations like this, where clearly not everybody's family members, and they're just beating the brakes off of these white people, it's this built up, pent up anger and hatred towards white people. And therefore you say anything to a black person and you're white, it's taken in an offensive way, and therefore they feel they're justified to beat them to death. And that's why.
What a stupid, irresponsible, and dangerous thing to say. So all black people are just walking around with this anger. Black people are aware and educated of our surroundings, systematically, institutionally, Jim Crow, slavery, all the things that have been done. So when you are labeling black people as walking around being violent and wanting revenge, what about the violence that has been inflicted for the last 500 years through all those means? Is that not a type of anger? Is that not a type of violence towards that community too? But no, you don't see it like that. If you're saying in minute cases that this is how people are able to manage their feelings as they go out on a day-to-day basis, This is how every black person feels their hostility towards poor victimhood of white people.
You will never see a video where there's tons of white people beating up black people like this. You will never see it. I can't find it. I tell people all the time, show me a video and I'll shut up. And it's because of the racism that's coming from the black
community. Like I said, the one with the folded chair, and there's others of black people doing
not every
stuff.
White person is an innocent person.
Ruining.
What this is showing true racism.
There's also the other one
from the black community.
A black lady was beaten by a family over a parking spot, if you've seen that one. And there's a few others online. Excuse me as I just go. There are the manhunt for the person in Reno, Dakota Hawning, whatever his name is, shot up 4 people. What about this other one that they got in the barber seat? Shot up a couple other people. Got another white gentleman who just got sentenced. The dentist for poisoning his wife. We're acting like this is just the type of violence that goes on here. Come on.
And the hatred that they have against white people.
Why?
Well, I think it's a few reasons. One, some of the animosity towards white people is legitimate because of some of the things that had happened in the past, which I think is stupid to retain. But I can see where some people still feel a little bit of animus. Some white people are
so simplistic. This Tatum guy is so simplistic, should not be speaking on any of these matters because it's so simple to him. And he hasn't done the work. He says he's grown up in a black community, but he's taken the position to go against the black community because he's ashamed of everything he hasn't learned about himself and how great being black is.
Racist against black people. So I see a slight bit of animus that could be legitimized, not necessarily to bludgeon people, but to feel a little animus on the inside. But also, there is this passing down of hatred from generations before us. For instance, my grandmother, and then she didn't pass this down to me, but my grandmother had to drink out of a separate water fountain, white people. So when you go back into generations past, there's this, in my opinion, wrong.
So because of this couple that may have mouthed off and got an ass whooping, they were holding all that in. Come on, man. You're being too simple, Tatum.
Passing down of hatred and animosity in a situation now where we don't deal with those things. Racism isn't like it used to be, especially against black people. So I think that those things together.
I can't even take much more of this boot-looking guy. You know what? Believe what you want to be politically. If you are educated, it fits where you are socioeconomically, if maybe you have a vision for your community, vote accordingly. But don't do it in terms of inclusion because you want to be part of these people's world so much that you're going to be an attack dog and leave out all logic and just spew ignorant rhetoric. Now, this isn't even the point of that. So the police chief over there in Cincinnati also did condemn news outlets for being irresponsible, not having the whole story, or not even knowing what's going on in the investigation and saying, hey, be careful. You are going to be responsible for some very terrible thing. Everybody wants to crystallize this as some sort of a race war when it is not that. I could certainly see somebody sitting back on either side and being like, this is just a terrible thing. But don't get it twisted. Nobody's sitting back here, especially last call, thinking that this is a good look for black people. They've already started to uncover a lot of the things that in the past of a lot of these suspects. They have priors. One, I believe, is out on bail right now for something. But to me, that's not even the point of this. It's the effort to try to make this bigger than it is on a racial line. When the thing happened with the folded chair over with the boat, nobody was like, yeah, let's go attack white people like this. Why are places like Fox News trying to cover this, like to get people ready, get your stuff ready in your bunkers? We might have to go out. And they use idiots like Tatum and the Hodge twins to go ahead and do this, to feed into it, to say that, yeah, look, we got a little black boy here. He's he believes in what we're doing. He's on our side. Why aren't the rest of you guys on our side? It is terrible, man. So as bad as I think this is, 3 out of 5 have been charged. 3 have been arrested. They're catching the perpetrators who did this. They're going to go through what one of the state prosecutors had said, the fullest extent of the law. So let's wait for that to happen. This does not reflect what the black community thinks of all white people and what they're willing to do from every altercation. This is just a few people that Fox News has already labeled thugs before they even looked into their past. But regardless, if they're doing some thuggish activity, let's see how this one plays out, because certainly as I look around the news, there are far worse things. Mass shootings, 2 a day, and 1 almost every other day this week. Why aren't they paying attention to that? There's enough of it. Anyway, we'll follow this. We'll see what happens. Don't let anything sway you on one side of another. Even if it turns out that the white couple said something horrible to the black people, it still really doesn't give them the right to beat them to a pulp. But on the other side, you can't provoke somebody and tell them how far they should go with it. If they did say that, maybe it's a lesson learned. If the black people were the perpetrators that came out violently and they have priors and they're going to be dealt with the fullest extent of the law, so be that. But let the chips fall where it lay. I'm going to stay on this. This is not what our community wants, to be going around trying to terrorize white people. So it's not a good look. And for Tatum to say, well, this is why it happens, because we had years of oppression. On one side, you want to admit the oppression, but on the other side, you think it's stupid. You called it stupid. Hey, I'm out. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this in my live too. Thank you for visiting. Check out my lives on Friday at 9 p.m. Thank you for checking out my video. Give me a like, share, subscribe on the way out. Definitely appreciate it. Peace.